Alright, it started.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Moral Economy's 7th podcast of the season. I am your host, Navaz.
I'm also here. My name's Andrew.
I'm another host, Eddie.
I'm your Speaker of the House, Chal.
I'm your bystander, Fred.
I'm the listener, Pooja.
Yeah, that's.
He's the same person as last time.
And I just love it how
He
we're
doesn't
just.
listen.
I love it how we're 6 men speaking. You know?
Yeah.
We need a seventh.
That tells you about how the world is.
Or at least we're not all white.
Yeah, we're not all white.
There's adversity.
Guys, now we know why us three are here.
That's
right.
Just for the diversity.
For the cred.
What do
Anyways,
you mean? Us three is the fourth guy here.
He's just from Miami, man.
I mean, and he's Italian too, man.
Alright, guys, I have to cut that part out. Fuck it.
Anyways, no, don't cut it off. Anyways, so we will be talking today. We'll begin. I'll start with the standard, ineffectuality that you did about philosophers, which pretty much philosophers have always spoken about it as well. Wittgenstein said philosophy leaves everything as it is. It doesn't do anything. Karl Marx very famously said that the philosophers merely interpreted the world. The real point, however, was
Merely
to
a what?
Change.
interpreted the world.
Interpret the world.
Yeah, but the real point, however, is change it.
Change it.
Anyways, there is this new movement of philosophers, predominantly led by philosophers, called effective altruism. Their sort of slogan, their motivating value is about doing good, doing most of the good that you can. And I've recently read one of the books that has come out from this, one that has been written by one of the leading proponents of this movement. It's mostly a student-run, millennial-run movement that aims to do good as much as they can. The book that I read was from William McCaskill. He's a 28-year-old lecturer at Oxford who did his PhD over there, and now he's head of a charity called Giving What We Can, with his friend Toby Ord. Yeah, they put together this charity, and this charity, since its inception in 2009, has received pledges to the tune of about $400 million as of today. William McCaskill tells us how we could lead more fulfilling, more morally enriching lives. And one of these ways to do this, one of these ways that he proposes, and I think I was also reading Peter Singer, one of his articles is about, they speak about this student called, he's the typical, it's not typical, but he's the standard face of the effective altruist that you'd see today. So this is Matt Wage, a philosophy student at Princeton, promising kid, and while attending Singer's seminar in Princeton, he decides that a very meaningful way to live his life would be that once he graduates, he works for Wall Street. He works for Wall Street, he makes a 6-figure salary, and he donates a significant amount of it to charity. Right? In this way, he can save a lot more lives, he can create an impact on the world, and be a better human being. That's the altruism in it. And the effective altruism, effective because McCaskill, Toby Ord, and people associated with this movement, they've come out with research that actually tells you how, ordinary, let's say standard, conventional philanthropy can actually make difference in the world. They have a list of charities that they wedded, Give Well, that's a website that they're a part of. They have research over there. They've done research to say that based on, we're going to discuss this, how much of the research that they're doing is controversial or what sort of a point it makes. But just to briefly put what they stand for, is that this sort of research enables them to identify which charities actually make an impact in terms of saving human lives. And given the fact that poverty, one of the evident measurements, manifestations of poverty is in terms of lives that we lose. One of the most cited figures of global poverty is that every day there's about 19,000 people dying of poverty-related causes. That comes to about 18 million a year, and put together since the end of the Cold War, this is about 300 million people that have died because of poverty-related causes.
That's the population of the U.S.
We could juxtapose with this a lot of numbers, but that's maybe for something for later. But again, this just goes on to tell you of the catastrophe that global poverty is, and sort of moral demands that it places on all of us. So McCaskill, Toby Ord, Matt Wage again. He started. You have this intuitive urge to do something positive, right? Now they have this other website called 80,000 Hours, which is the standard amount of time that a human being puts during their life into work. Over there, that's sort of a career advisory sort of a thing. What sort of career should you take up where you could make a lot of difference to the world in terms of reducing this sort of inequality of this impact. So this sort of goes on in the way that moral philosophers are actually doing something about the world. Doing in the sense that they're taking up a cause, and they're taking up a cause within the system, something that is addressing the problems within in the system's logic. So on the face of it, their philosophy is very utilitarian, consequential, involves calculations. The disability adjusted life years, quality adjusted life years are the indices that they use in terms of determining what sort of interventions would be appropriate, are the ones that make a meaningful impact on human beings and human lives. And very frankly, once you read the book, you just do get the sort of he comes out with all these arguments that make you question the sort of things that you might have for example, he comes out and tells you fair trade is, you might have think buying fair trade stuff is a good thing that you're doing, but it actually is not. Fair trade is involved in relatively, when you compare them with other countries, fair trade standards are difficult to meet. They require a certain level of infrastructure, a certain amount of investment. So fair trade is actually helping poor people in Mexico, as opposed to say Ethiopia. A lot of the money goes into the middlemen, that kind of stuff. This sort of unsettles you, questions you, what you might have thought of. Or another example I think he gives out is being vegetarian, where he tells you that by eating eggs you're actually contributing more harm to animals than by eating beef. An average American consumes 0.8 hen as compared to just 0.1 beef cows in a year. So if you really want to reduce cruelty to animals, you might as well think about it. And another thing that is also interesting, that conventionally you'd listen, buy local, consume local, that's a good thing. But his research says that it actually is not. 10% of a food's carbon footprint comes from transportation, whereas 80% of it is coming from production. So he goes on to say that if you are somebody living in the UK and consuming tomatoes produced in UK, you are actually, your carbon footprint of that tomato consumption is actually 5 times more than what would have been if you'd consumed tomatoes from Spain. So,
sorry, how was that?
Oh, if you're somebody living in the UK?
Right, but how is it that your carbon footprint is bigger?
Because Spain is a warmer country, and UK would use more heating, heated by artificial or other means of energy, that certainly impact the carbon footprint of the production of that sort of community. It does, according to his research.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he does not talk about is global inequality in itself. The book is really interesting. I recommend you all to read it. I mean, it does motivate you to do good in your life. But I think the whole book mentions oppression probably once, and he does not, like most of the other people involved. Like Peter Singer, influential essay, Famine, Affluence, Morality, 1972, great read. Peter Singer does not talk about where does global inequality come from.
Yeah.
I personally, I as much as the sort of good impact that Peter Singer's come out in terms of charity, in terms of whatever, that he's motivated people, things like this. Essentially, this argument is Peter Singer's. The argument that there's this drowning child in the pond, and you're going by with your suit, and you all find it morally abhorrent that you would not jump in, soil your suit and save the child. Most of the people would agree that you're going to save the drowning child. But then Singer juxtaposes this with some kid dying in some faraway place. That kid is also in need of that sort of help, but you sleep about it. You don't really think about it. So that sort of intuition of our sort of cosmopolitan responsibilities, if I may use the term, that we have responsibilities to all human beings across the world, not just to people that we can are some sort of in spatial relationships with us in terms of community, in terms of whatever ethnicity, I don't know, vicinity and all that kind of stuff. So that's I'm not gonna you should read the book if you want to, but that's pretty much the sort of argument that he's trying to make, that philanthropy is a way of making the world a better place. Philanthropy, I mean, if you look at it, the numbers are astonishing. It's a huge industry. In the US alone, philanthropy is about 200 billion worth of an industry. And some numbers, World Bank, if you were to trust World Bank numbers, World Bank, as of numbers for 2014, I was reading recently, they estimate that the global poverty shortfall is about $330 billion. And that is all that we require to end severe poverty. That is to bring up all people on the earth to be able to $1 a day standard.
Yearly.
So yearly. Yeah.
Isn't that the most damning sort of?
That is the most damning sort of poverty, which is
The most damning against philanthropy. The most damning argument against it is that there's already quite a bit going in, and yet we need.
Which is why
so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Which it seems like to me. I mean, if we're ready to go into discussion.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
You can.
Yeah. It seems. I mean, to me, it makes good points about how market solutions. This effective altruism, and the story that you presented in the beginning about fair trade and stuff like that. How basically market mechanisms cannot affect or help do the change that we want to see in the world. Help poverty and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's the same mechanisms that are actually creating the poverty that then we try to also use to end the poverty.
Exactly.
And this number that you presented me, I mean, it was I heard it correctly, right? 200 billion industry in the United States.
In the United States, just in the United States.
And then we need every year
$330 billion to match income shortfall,
to get rid of the worst of the poverty.
Yeah.
So it's already, I mean, we should be already seeing a huge significant impact. However, if 2/3 are going of what we need are already going in, and certainly other countries are probably doing something. So I mean, this is all sounding to me like criticism against their own.
No, I think that's not. Let me just briefly put in, because what their whole point is that $100 billion of this charity is going to waste.
Yeah, I know. That's what I meant about the market solutions. Is that maybe if we thought of different ways, not non-market ways of ending poverty, maybe that's 100 billion wouldn't have gone to waste. That's what I'm saying.
But that is what they're trying to say. What they're trying to say, McCaskill talks about this as well. McCaskill talks about what sort of interventions. He gives this example of deworming, deworming to have better educational outcomes.
Yeah.
Or malaria nets. Malaria is one of the significant diseases that kills a lot of children. But a lot of money that goes into, say, funding for malaria goes into, I don't know.
I wasn't criticizing that yet. I was criticizing the philanthropy of and charity of nowadays.
But this is what they're trying to come against.
Yeah.
Their whole argument is against this notion.
I understand that.
Yeah. But this is, I think, in that sense, their solution is sort of a step above the standard solution that you'd get.
Yeah.
They give out the example of supporting one blind person in your community is about $34,000. Whereas with $34,000, if you were to spend this to a better charity, you could make impact to about 800 children. You could save about 800 children.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of prioritization.
Yeah, it's a matter of
where
prioritization.
this philanthropy
that's what all
is
the
going.
Utilitarians are always about.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where this consequence is going into. But on their scale, sort of, they are aiming for a world where more people live longer, right? And you would not really be supporting arts. They give out an example of, I don't know, I'm forgetting the artist's name. He gave $100 million to a museum. For them, this is wasteful sort of charity. This charity could be used elsewhere in
Yeah.
a sort of...
And what my criticism of this is that, that sounds like a very useful, good, effective way of getting at the problem from within the set of tools that we seem to be allowed to get at the problem. Like, we can make it much more effective if we know which charity can also, feed 800 children as opposed to one blind person, whatever.
Yeah.
But, the point I would make is that we should not be making these calculations or anything. We should get rid of it, the whole thing. And that starts with a system that's creating.
That you're right. But this is what I would sort of criticize. This is what I would later criticize.
Okay,
that by sidestepping, I mentioned this. That he does not talk in his book about global inequality.
He doesn't talk about the where oppression came
exactly.
from.
He takes
even though he gets so close. I'm intimate with Singer's article.
so
Hold on a
just-
sec, Michelle. I'm intimate with Singer's article, right? This whole thing with the why would you save the child and ruin your suit here and not the people over there? And he got so close to oppression without
talking about it. Exactly. That is the thing, because utilitarians would not engage in a normative discussion, because they would evaluate actions based on their consequences. McCaskill does not talk about where does this sort of inequality come from. What he's taking the world, and Singer is as well, taking the world as it is given. Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
And I think
that's the problem with all of our solutions that we're presenting today, is that we're taking the world as it is given and then finding the solutions within what we are given.
Exactly.
To us.
But that is again, that is where I started from.
Yeah.
That philosophers again would
not criticizing you.
No, it's okay.
We're bringing about all the criticisms.
Philosophers would talk about rights, justice, change, and then the debate would just remain a debate.
Yeah.
McCaskill, what he's trying to do is he's trying to present a model that actually goes on to make an impact, which is why this is called effective altruism, and which is why it's found so much appeal across the privileged Western European and North Atlantic sort of region.
But does it use happiness index at all?
It's not using the happiness index. It is not using the happiness index.
It seems to me like, okay, so he just wants to get a bunch of miserable poor exploited people to have more babies and live longer. That doesn't sound like a very nice solution. Why don't we focus on the people who exist now and try to make their lives happier lives? That seems to be a more effective way. If you're going to even use this crazy ass effective altruism, and we can say what we want about the fact that the system is producing these things and that this thing is just comes directly out of the system, and so it just is in a sense reproducing
we can say anything we want, right?
We can definitely talk about that, and we should, but
yeah, we will.
But even just to criticize his model itself, if you're going to be effectively altruistic, focus on improving the lot of the people who exist now and not getting them to live longer.
And
we'll keep them alive so that we can. It almost sounds like some sort of weird, conspiracy to increase the labor force so you can drive down the cost of labor.
Thank you, Charles. You said what everyone was thinking here.
Yeah, but again, this happiness that you said of the existing people involves their being able to live fulfilling lives.
Yeah,
if you read Amartya Sen, Amartya Sen has come out with this model of how all these capabilities are in point to be able to live a fulfilling a human life, to be human at all, let's say. Without these capabilities, which involve to a very large extent health, education, nutrition.
And I agree
so
with
in that sense, I don't think that they're obsessed in terms of reproducing people or I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's very difficult to also separate making people's lives better now and also
stop them from reproducing.
I'm not saying to stop them, but us with good lives reproduce less, right? So it seems, or at least there's some kind of correlation out there that
it
seems to
suggest
something like that.
Well-educated people,
and that's education, and it's specifically women's education. That's the most
education
important
plays
thing.
a big role in
women's
education
is the most effective way of birth control, actually.
So, but again,
it's the strongest tool.
The point of the thing is that their whole methodology is totally very economics driven, in the sense that they have an obsession to quantify everything. So human lives are quantified with disability adjusted years, quality adjusted life years, and efficiency. You know, which of the sort of lives are important, which life is more meaningful. This is sort of something that that a serious philosopher would sort of not engage in. Not engage in the sense that we're not anyone to determine which life is worth worth being saved, and which life is not. But again, this comparability that economics assumes is again, there's a lot of research that proves that this is totally bullshit. You cannot compare a number of goods and services to another set of goods and services, except when you reduce them to numbers,
except when you reduce everything
to numbers,
to the point of.
But
not
again,
being
a lot of
useful.
things in human life are not captured by numbers. The mainstream critique of economics which is pretty much standard now. Anyway, so this sort of a thing again goes on to tell you. It goes on to tell you that capitalism as a system will find its own correction. You do just leave the system do its own thing. It will find its own correction and correct things on its own, which is what these people are trying to suggest. Quit philosophy, quit career for charity, quit volunteering, go work for Wall Street, make $2 million a year, donate 20% to charity, be good. Wake up every day thinking that you have a purpose, you're fulfilling your purpose by going working for that trading firm.
And there's a purpose to begin with.
And that makes me think of capitalism's capacity towards co-optation. It can co-opt
all kinds of
and it can co-opt this very notion of solving abject poverty.
Yeah,
it can make it into a commodity.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we all throw Zizek around here a little too much,
right.
But I mean that is exactly the point. That's exactly the point he made. Is
absolutely
that by selling the bottle of water, which provides a bottle of water also to some Ethiopian child, you're sort of getting rid of your moral culpability for buying the bottle of water in the first place.
That's right.
That is right. But again, I think a further bigger systemic critique that I think that was done by Emanuel Wallerstein, if you were to read him, he goes on to tell that such sort of critiques of the system, they go on to actually strengthen the system by pointing out its flaws. That inequality is a problem, fix it. Poverty is a problem, this is the way to fix it.
That's the
so this sort of that is how the system co-opts all these. But then again, if you look at the history of capitalism, it has sort of co-opted all sort of critiques that have come its way. Yeah. Inequality is come up with the institution of the welfare state, institution of charity, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there is research that questions all this sort of stuff. I mean, most of us have read the paper from Alicina and Dollar, that tells you about the motivations behind the development assistance from rich countries, from the OECD countries to other countries. Yeah. That goes on and tells you that it's not for altruistic purposes. It's totally in line with their strategic political interests.
Actually, altruism. The word altruism is a good word to talk about as well. Like, it's a very contested word within philosophy itself. Some people, think of it as something that is, as we sort of understand it in the folk sense, that it's a feeling that you have towards the other human being. But others describe it as this sort of warm and fuzzy feeling that you get for helping people. So it's actually a reward for yourself and not for other people. Yeah. We have problems even figuring out what altruism is.
Yeah, but either way, I think in both of the senses, in the warm glow sense, Peter Singer, I think I was reading Singer's article about it, Singer does rely on the warm glow. Singer tells us that why this is important. And he relies on the psychological research that has come out with the warm glow, right? He says, the research has shown that helping others has this effect of warm glow on yourself.
I mean, again, the idea, if that's true, I mean, let's just say that the warm glow feeling is the actual psychological feeling that we have, and that's the reason we're altruistic. Yeah. We have to discuss, is there something wrong with that? Should we be altruistic even if we don't feel warm and fuzzy about it? Begrudging altruism, for instance. Yeah. Like with the migrants, for instance. Professor Wolff, his latest Global Capitalism, he talked about the migrant crisis in Europe, quote unquote crisis in Europe, and how it's not necessarily that people are just completely racist. I mean, there are lots of racists among Europeans, but it's also that these are migrants who are people perceive going to come over and threaten their job security and stuff like that, and then they're being told by the elite, who they couldn't care less either way, really, that we should be taking care of these migrants for altruistic reasons.
But again, I think this. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I think that that's a very good example to show you how the problem is presented.
Yeah.
Insofar as this problem was first presented as a duty of humanity, as a duty of justice.
Yeah.
There were you probably remember seeing the images from Munich Central Station where a lot of people were lined up and receiving all these people. So in that sense, I think.
Yeah, that's the Kantian duty.
That's not the Kantian way. I think.
No. I mean that you would help them begrudgingly. That you help them because it's your duty. It's the Kantian duty.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say, this was presented then.
Yeah.
This was presented.
It's not
then.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. This was presented then. It was later on something happened that presented these migrants as people who are just not compatible with the society, who are competitors of the jobs. It's how this thing is presented.
Yeah.
But insofar as people like Bill Gates, McCaskill talks about Bill Gates. I'll tell you about other people that he talks about in a few minutes. He talks about Bill Gates. He says that by the end of his life, Bill Gates will have donated $100 billion to charity and saved more than, I think, 100 million people from dying. Because Bill Gates is sort of the poster boy for the effective altruist. Because Bill Gates is just not contributing to X, Y, and Z. Bill Gates is directing his charity towards causes where he thinks that it would have a lot of effect.
For instance, like
to malaria, for instance, to other diseases.
to plumbing, for instance, in third world countries.
Warren Buffett is another person. But then, his standard, his more, let's say, unsettling example was Norman Borlaug. You probably have never heard of him. But I know Norman Borlaug because I know that Borlaug was one of the people who was actually responsible for the fact that I'm alive today. Right? He was the guy who in Caltech invented a strain of wheat.
Produced
that
3 times as much.
That increased crop yields.
He's cited as the person who saved most lives.
100 billion, billion, at least a billion people, because India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they're, I don't know, collectively 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
And that is where in the 60s, the Green Revolution, yielding from Borlaug seeds came about. And then he also cites this other guy that, we probably don't know about it, but he's had a very effective impact in terms of saving human lives.
Yeah.
McCaskill talks about him, forgetting his name. He's a Ukrainian diplomat for the USSR who actually lobbied the World Health Organization to start vaccination for smallpox. And McCaskill's calculations, according to his calculations, 122 million children have been saved from that WHO initiative in 1951 to this day. And that means that has an impact in terms of the effective altruist argument. That has an impact that would not have been achieved by minusing all the wars that, world peace. Say we had world peace since 1951 to this day, we had no other war, we would not have been able to save that much people. 122 million people are a lot of people. So this is the sort of argument that they engage in terms of, saving lives, doing good.
Very utilitarian.
Very utilitarian,
Yeah. This might be a subject for a different podcast, but
we could do that.
No, but
again, I think the normative failure.
Hold on. I got more to say there. This might be a subject for another podcast, but I even though as you said, like even if we negated all of the wars of the past 50 years since 1951, so 6 years, something like that, we wouldn't have saved as many people as these people did through effective research and stuff like that. But the thing with war is, war creates the situation where you don't do this research. It's sort of like a double oppression. You have the oppression of, I'm going to be killed, but also I'm not going to be able to just lead my normal life and actually do things to help other people. I have to take care of my own.
Yeah.
So
you're right, but the example that I gave why I mentioned war was just a juxtaposition, It was just for
exactly. No,
it's just a number. I'm not going into the normativity of war, or neither is he.
I know. It's just that's a subject I like to bring up a lot because
I have a little problem of the war concept because
That was just
You
an
are
example
you're
for
comparing
juxtaposition.
things quantitatively,
Mhm.
so that is the whole problem
Exactly.
from your point of view. But
Yeah.
even that, comparing that to war
Yeah.
would be, how do you want to quantitatively, measure the impact of war on society? Because I could argue that war actually made a lot of people live
Rich,
longer
yeah.
because it accelerated some kind of technology who
Yeah.
then later were used to increase the level of life, to
You're
increase
right.
a lot of life.
Totally.
So you can't say war because there is casualty in war, that is like a minus thing. So if you want to compare, which from our point of view doesn't make sense to compare this quantitatively, that case, that comparison I think doesn't make sense.
No, I said the comparison was just a measure of juxtaposition. 122 kids saved is in terms of the sheer quantity of that. That's it. Nothing
As in
else.
the example Eddie previously gave, that the population of US was saved with that.
No, no,
You
we're
can say that
not.
with,
We're
with
not.
the, with the
I mean-
inventor of antibiotics as well, right?
Yeah, you could totally say that, but that's what I'm trying to say. That he uses this example, the number. Let's just
No, no,
forget
but
the
I mean,
war
just
example.
separately from this being a juxtaposition, I understand
We could
Is-
go into
is that this-
normativity of war.
these are also very good questions
Absolutely.
to talk about.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
which also again for me leads to like a question. I criticize philanthropy very, very strongly. I criticize charity very strongly as remaining within the possibilities that we are given within the system.
Exactly.
And what I would throw to the table is, well, what are our solutions?
Wait a minute.
Well, we're all
I'll do
just
that.
chomping at the bit to criticize this, like you presented us with
Yeah.
so much things to criticize, we
Yeah.
just can't wait.
Which is what I was trying to do.
Can't wait.
Which is what I was,
I know,
which
yeah,
is what I
yeah,
put
yeah.
myself
Yeah,
to do.
I think the whole
I mean,
panel.
I totally get. What I'm trying to say is that they have a model that works within the system. Within the system, it has logic that provides a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it's
I mean,
excellent. I mean this guy's
the
naming
site-
some of the best.
The
The
site
best,
article that I
it's,
shared, the other day. That tells a very intimate story of a student in Berlin, how she left learning languages and moved to learning maths, because she thinks by studying maths she can go and work in a bank and donate to charity later, right? So that sort of altruistic thing, there is something wrong with it, which is exactly what I'm trying to say. By just focusing on making more money and providing that money to charity, you're reducing your moral duties to just your paycheck, whereas charity, as much as it is an optional moral carrot, it's an optional moral duty, is not similar to a duty of justice. Now, something that I've read very recently was a very excellent book, which I again recommend you all to read. It's from Thomas Pogge. It's called World Poverty and Human Rights: Cosmopolitan Responsibilities and Reforms. Pogge is a philosopher at Princeton. I have a lot of respect for the guy. His argument, now I'm trying to criticize this using his argument. His argument is that poverty is created and sustained. Created and sustained through a number of global institutions in which we're all of us, we are complicit in upholding these institutions. He gives out the example of slavery in 19th, 18th century America. Says, even if you were not a slave owner yourself, but by participating in the daily life of that society, you were implicit in the crime of slavery, in the sense of consuming the products made by slave labor, in the sense of being part of a society, upholding a social institution that was complicit in providing a crime. So what separates Pogge's analysis is that the effective altruists tell you about a positive duty of charity, right? What you should do, what you ought to do, but they don't tell you about a negative duty from not participating in the system, right?
Because they have
Again,
to get into the normative.
Yeah, exactly. And how they do this, McCaskill goes on into the counterfactual and marginal analysis. He says, well, if you don't go to Wall Street, right, you're a good guy, you're an effective altruist, you don't go to Wall Street, someone else will. So read that, So by going to Wall Street as an effective altruist, you're going to make a change in the system, actually, by giving all that money that you're going to make and providing that to charity. That's sort of a counterfactual analysis that he goes with, which again, is questionable to begin with.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to Pogge's argument, Pogge goes on and tells you that one of the first reasons, as much complicated as poverty is, a number of institutional factors, my understanding, essentially, it's a political problem. It's not a financial problem. Jeffrey Sachs, if you read his book, End of Poverty: The Possibility of Better Times, he just says that we need probably 0.5% of GDP of the OECD countries to eradicate severe poverty. Poggi comes up with numbers close to 1.5%, right? So that means why is this poverty a moral problem? Is because poverty is existing at the same time, side by side with unprecedented global affluence, right? And that is what makes it morally reprehensible. Because there are 2.7 billion people, who were denied of means of a basic existence, but there are about 900 million people who are living such luxurious lives that that should be questioned on a moral basis, in the sense that these people are participating in institutions and upholding an institutional order, which again is the capitalist institutional order by virtue of IMF, WTO, whatever, financial links, trade links, all that kind of stuff. That sustains this order. So what global poverty requires of us, Poggi says, is that we desist from supporting these institutions, from initiating political change, right? That is an argument that tells you, okay, you could positively go and do charity, but you could also, negatively desist from participating in these institutions that you serve to legitimize, that you serve, that you're implicitly, a part of by as a member of these societies.
And to reiterate your argument and give it a sort of more intuitive context, look again at the slavery idea, because in a slave society, exactly as you pointed out earlier, you imagine being effectively altruistic in a slave society and saying, oh, I'm going to go out to the slaves and I'm just going to make sure they all have enough to eat and they have comfortable beds and all of this stuff, but
I'm not going to do about anything to ending their misery.
Which we might also see in a certain sense as something that's good to do.
Right? We don't want those slaves to be suffering and dying.
We see a slave child on there. We're not going to just be like, I can't help you. I'm going to help all slaves. No, but
we would hope that people, if we were in those times, we would also be organizing to end slavery.
We hope.
That is exactly that is the sort of duties that Poggi talks about. But again, in the slave society, the example that Shell just gave, you could feel the warm glow.
Helping the slaves with, giving
that would give you the warm
better
glow.
slaves,
Exactly, but that would not question the basic injustice of the system that perpetuates.
That's why I actually have a strong criticism of the warm glow point of view of altruism, is because of that. Is that, well, if it's just for the warm glow, then you can actually do a lot of very concrete things right now to help other people and get that warm glow, and more and more and more, and then you have the white powder on your nose, basically, right? But I mean, and the begrudging sort of altruism that I still think is understood as the folk meaning of altruism doesn't actually have that. You actually have to love thy neighbor, even if the neighbor's a dick, or you have to turn your other cheek and stuff like that.
Conventional morality,
Bible morality, even if you want, or Buddha morality.
Yeah, but again, what I think where Singer goes beyond is this positive duty of going on and helping them.
Yeah.
Going out and coming out. With McCaskill himself. McCaskill is probably making, I don't know how much he's making, but again, he has set himself £20,000 a year. That's it. Everything else that he's making a year is being donated to charity. His friend Toby Ord has set himself £18,000.
And he was a philosopher at Princeton as well?
No, he was not the philosopher. That was Matt Wage. Okay. Yeah, but he's the philosopher at Oxford. He's the guy who actually modeled for his doctoral dissertation. He found a model for moral actions. He modeled morality in terms of actual that sort of impact. How you can have an impact. So I took the course. I took the quiz on 80,000 hours. You could totally go there and check for the effective career that you could have. They tell me I could go to
some sort of
politics.
apologism for the moral activities of capitalism. That's he's an apologist for it. I mean that's his role in the sort of educational academic institution. I mean he plays the role of, I'm going to find out why capitalism is good. And I'm going to save capitalism from itself. And it's like you've completely Yeah. I mean, he you know, because the ideological background of capitalism is this whole, you know, economic, you know, homo economicus, thinking and shit like this, you know, and he's one of the priests of this strange cult, you know.
But again,
and
to you know, to be the devil's advocate, you know, their argument is within the system. So, you know, we could totally criticize it in that sense from a meta view, from coming from another side of world philosophy, but within the system, you know, it totally makes sense. You know, they're growing. I told you their charity made $400 million.
No, I mean,
Received
they
pledges.
definitely won't be the first people we put under the guillotine, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these people are trying to actually help people, and you know, maybe we win a few.
you
of
know, I don't
to
know,
our
man.
side.
You know, I mean, I don't want to put him under the guillotine or anything. You know, I don't want to kill anybody. You know, but
The proverbial guillotine.
But you know, I think that they have a responsibility as philosophers to, you know, to be critical of the system. You know, like okay, maybe, you know, I don't know. I mean, it seems like if these people are doing philosophy and if they're thinking seriously about moral and ethical issues, you know, then it goes beyond just like crunching numbers in some sort of, you know, base utilitarian sense. I mean, we're beyond that as a philosophical community.
Shelley, I mean, we
you know?
as two PhD, you know, candidates for philosophy, we know that people, even in philosophy, have their heads stuck in the sand.
Yeah.
I mean,
up their asses.
But utilitarianism is a living philosophy. Let me remind you again, you know, utilitarianism has a rich history, whatever sorts. But again, you know, we can totally argue against. I mean, Peter Singer, for one, you know, he's a very well-respected philosopher, utilitarian, whatever. But you know, we could be against utilitarianism. That is what we are, right? But and we could criticize utilitarianism all that we can. But again,
quite a bit actually.
Yeah, but I think
the best utilitarianism is basically just a virtue ethics in disguise.
Yeah.
Mill
finished the only good utilitarianism, and then he died.
But then again, Mill was an officer for the British East India Company, right? Let's not forget that.
No, I mean,
let's not forget that.
You know.
So again, you know, Poggy, coming back to Poggy's research and telling you more about Poggy. Poggy tells you that the global inequality exists as it exists today. It's not framed as a moral problem. It's framed as a problem of beneficence. You know, you could do good by what? Charity. So again, but he criticizes charity because charity is an optional moral category. You know, you can just not do any charity and still live a very morally meaningful life, right? But again, if you're implicit in an unjust institution, in perpetrating injustice to people, as long as, you know, you read Poggy and realize that you're participating in such a scheme of institutions, right? And that is what do you call it?
Know,
mandatory.
Wall Street loves to repackage toxic assets, man.
Yeah, otherwise,
that's exactly what they're doing. You know?
Exactly.
You know, they're just
again,
taking all
the
this
whole
exploitation and wrapping it up in a little package and saying, giving it back as charity, and like, and now I'm a good guy. You know,
that's the commodification.
Guys, that really brought us to a very good concluding part.
Yeah. Okay, so read both the books. I mean, read McCaskill. He has good arguments to make, but they're pretty much bullshit. And read Poggy as well, because he's making really awesome arguments, right? He's one. I mean, Poggy makes another very good argument why we're all implicit in this, because he talks about I don't know, but this is interesting, and I think we should all listen to this as well. He gives a very practical example of a global resources dividend that can be used to eradicate systematic poverty in the world, which is just 1% of all taxes on resources all over the world, irrespective of where they're used, just 1% of that. And that, according to his calculations, would result in about $350 billion.
You know, we only have to kill 1% of the population in order to...
Well, if you're making...
I think it's 0.01.
I think 1% is too much. I think, you know, we're all in the 1% in the sense that, you know...
Yeah, I know. Just to make it a nice round number, you know?
Adjusted for purchasing power parity, I think if you're making about $24,000... No, 24,000 pounds a year. You're in the global 1%.
It's $34,000.
Yeah, pounds. I'm talking pounds.
Yeah, I know. I saw
25,000 pounds.
I saw the same statistic, 34.
McCaskill, you know, speaks about that, and he says, you know, that you're so privileged. So think about the next time you go to movies or buy a beer at the pub. You know, that's something that an anti-malaria net that a kid could use, right?
Read my article on time. Yeah. That's all. Do that.
But again, I think, so Yeah, be effective altruist or be a cosmopolitan, a true cosmopolitan, like Poggy wants us to be. That we desist from. That morality is not just limited to your paycheck. Morality is living a life where you do not participate in institutions that cause harm to people. Be that by the way of participating in an intellectual property regime, or I don't know, whatever trade agreement, the TTIP, whatever that you have. That is the source of the problem.
I think that's a message we can all agree with here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nava.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay critical, everybody.
Stay critical,
stay
everyone.
critical,
Read your books.
Subscribe and
Subscribe
and
and
comment.
Comment, yeah.
Even if you didn't
comment.
make it this far, share it.
Yeah,
Just
share it. Yeah, share it.
Thanks
We should
a
probably
lot.
remind
Thank
you
you.
throughout to share.
See you the next week.
For those of you who are about to tune out, please share this video.
We're sick and tired of all your lies, your unwillingness to compromise. So we'll take it into our own hands. Educate ourselves and take a stand. We're gonna occupy your street, your house, your bank accounts, your everything, yes, everything. Oh, we're here to occupy. I know we feel it's time we occupy. Hey, yeah. I reckon it's a revolution. When it's all